Did you know the Bank of England is quietly screwing the economy and us and Labour all at the same time? Okay, let me break it down. So way back when, in 2008, the Bank of England, obviously there was a big global financial crisis, and the Bank of England, in order to kind of help support that liquidity crisis, basically, started printing lots of money and pushing it into the financial system. Primarily, they did this through buying up government bonds and gilts. Anyway, did a little bit more later after the EU referendum, and again some bursts through the pandemic when obviously the economy was needing some support. So this built up a big balance of magic money. Money we just magic from nothing, which is also how all money is created by private banks whenever you go for a loan, but that's for another time. So it was about $1 trillion at its peak, about 895 billion with a B. And so after all these bouts, you would think, okay, perhaps like leave it. Leave it there, it's not harming anyone, it's not doing anything. Except at some point in 2020, the Bank of England, with no real solid theory or basis, just kind of decided it wanted to unwind it quite quickly. So, one option could have been to just, they bought all these bonds, they tend to have sort of, 10, 20, 30-year maturities. They could just wait until the bonds matured. And in that way, over the next sort of 30 years, the portfolio would gradually wind down and they wouldn't bother reinvesting it. That would be one way to do it, relatively, just reducing the pain. But they thought, no, we kind of feel a little bit icky about this magic money that we have pretended for so long we couldn't do. And so they've been aggressively winding down this balance, and they've been doing quite a lot. So I think it's half. So 500 billion or so, almost, in the last kind of 4 or 5 years has been sucked out of the economy just quietly. And the impact of this is the sludgy kind of economic growth we're seeing, like sub 1%, really sludgy economy. And beyond just like the top line growth level, we've also had a cost of living crisis because of the massive inflation and, wages have not kept up. So you would have thought this is just the worst possible time to be inflicting pain on the economy. And, one more thing. This isn't the only thing they're doing. They've also raised interest rates. So it's a kind of two-pronged double whammy suffocation of the economy. But the interesting thing about this QE balance is that, one, most people don't know about it, and two, no one fucking understands. And the Bank of England, there is no kind of solid theory behind this need to really quickly unwind. Okay, so those are two problems. Then we come to the third and final flaw in this dastardly plan, which is it's actually crystallising losses. And these losses are projected to be monumental, 134 billion by the end of this expedited campaign. And the reason for this is because of the hike in interest rates that they are responsible for. So they bought all these bonds at much lower interest rates, when we had low interest rates. And then now in this massively high interest rate environment, they're selling them off. So some of these bonds are actually, they're like 73% depreciated. These are massive, massive losses. And it's projected to be 134 billion total loss over this portfolio. The taxpayer, for you and me. Which brings us niftily to another point that I want to touch on, which is all of these decisions massively impacting all of us in the economy and our wages and, everything. This isn't happening under a kind of democratic mandate. This isn't the Labour Party. It wasn't the Tories. This is the Bank of England, technocrats or ideologues, depending on your viewpoint, just sort of deciding to do shit. Completely independent. But of course, they're not independent because who's picking up the bill? We are, as taxpayers. And it's 134 billion. to put this into context, like Rachel Reeves is really under the hammer for, you know, this new £20 billion shortfall in the budget. Meanwhile, we're literally blowing to the wind, just utterly pointless. 134 billion. I don't know. This just seems like insanity to me. But yeah. One point I want to make, this is austerity by stealth. So, yeah, I mean, the other thing that's interesting is, like, I wonder if Reeves and Starmer and the cabinet understand what's happening here. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have advisors, but you would have thought they'd be more vocal. Like, it's like, who runs this country? Is it us, or is it kind of unelected, you know, economists who don't actually have a solid foundation or a reason for what they're doing, are inflicting massive pain, sustaining 134 billion loss? You would have thought, Jesus, that's a fireable offence. But no, I've not heard anything, not a squeak. So I just think this is a really interesting, massive angle, because we have all this debate about how we're going to pay for that. What's this, you know, really kind of rigid and scrupulous when it comes to normal spending and taxing and stuff. And then by the back door, we've got this incredible economic experiment going on, which is sustaining a massive 134 billion loss, and no one's talking about it. This is the insanity of, like, our, you know, public debate and political culture, and the kind of stranglehold and the sort of black box of, I don't know, mainstream economic thinking on some issues, which is not sustained by empirical reality, but seems to be more driven by, you know, vibes. A kind of ickiness at, like, you know, the state creating money, so let's get rid of this.